Okay, Assalamu alaikum to everybody. This is something that I found very helpful for myself and with clients. It's the idea that we're going through three different experiences in our life, which we can look at these as circles. And the first one is what we call the comfort circle. And the comfort circle is when we're feeling comfortable, we're feeling together, we're feeling safe, and that's usually to do with familiarity. So we're in a space that's familiar to us, we know what's going on, and when we get challenged in life, when we have a lot of difficulties and things that really shake us, we often have the attitude that if I can just stay in this circle, then I will be okay. And so what we tend to do is we tend to hold fast to being in comfort. So someone, for example, who's struggling with anxiety and depression, they will say, as long as I can just stay in my room and just watch my favorite TV shows and stay in bed under my warm blanket, my hot water bottle, I will be okay and life will be okay. And there's a truth to that, in that obviously when you're in that situation, you're feeling that you're in your comfort zone. The problem with that, though, and this was a light bulb moment for me way back, was if I can control my situation, if I can feel comfortable, I will be okay. If we are only seeking to be in comfort, what eventually happens is that our circle of comfort actually constricts and becomes smaller and smaller. So then as we get older, we actually start to become challenged by the very things that make it that were okay for us and comfortable with us. And so we are constantly in a state of flux, and we are never stagnant. But when we feel really challenged and we want to be in the circle of comfort, it's almost we're craving that stability and that being stagnant in something, being still. But in the from a meta perspective, what happens is that we will stay with our comfort circle actually start to shrink and shrink and shrink over time. And you'll see that, for example, with elderly people, or we even say that when we get older in our 30s and 40s, we say, I used to be so resilient. I used to be able to, or I used to really enjoy this thing, but now I can't deal with it anymore. And you'll notice that old people, an example for many people who are elderly and alone, any sort of thing that takes them out of their comfort zone, like someone could park a car up against the house and it be unusual for them, they get really triggered. So the basic day-to-day challenges just becomes harder and harder for them. And that's because we stay so long in our comfort and what we're familiar with that we can't face any challenges, and so our anxiety just increases. So what's the goal? The goal is not to be in one or the other, like I was speaking about in the other video with the figure eight, is that it's not about being in here or being here in either circle, it's about moving back and forth. So we do need this. This is a huge resource for us and a huge support for us, but we need to be going back and forth and challenge the second circle. This is a circle where we still have a sense of self. We still feel some togetherness in ourselves and gatheredness, but it is pushing us a little bit. So it's a manageable challenge. And when we do that, when we go into challenge and then we come back into comfort, go into challenge, go back into comfort, what actually happens is our comfort circle starts to expand and our challenge circle starts to expand, and we're able to take on even more challenges in this slow incremental way. of just challenging ourselves in a way that just feels manageable, and that builds the muscle, that resiliency muscle, and we are able to come out of our shutdown and out of our overwhelm and out of our anxiety, or use our anxiety, that energy of anxiety, in a way that's channeled to actually face life. And that's why you'll notice children generally are more resilient, because they're constantly facing new experiences and having to adapt to them. So when we're young, we're going back and forth regularly because we're constantly facing new situations. As we get older, our daily life is very much less, there's more exposure to things that we know and less exposure to things that we don't know. So we're not moving as regularly back and forth between challenging comfort. And so we get used to just being in comfort. And that's when the problems happen for us, because we just become less willing to show up for the challenges, or less able to show up for the challenges. And we wonder why that is. It's because we're not moving it back and forth and back and forth. And it's just like exercise. If you think about physical exercise, you never done a push-up before, you do one, you feel that real challenge, and then you rest. And then the rest actually is where the strengthening's happening, because the muscles are actually rebuilding and rebuilding. If we're constantly in challenge with little comfort, our resources will completely wear down, and we will feel that we're just in survival mode, and we're working on our reserves, and we feel wound up, we feel spent. So it's really important that when we're in challenge for a certain time and we say, oh my goodness me, this is not feeling sustainable, that we come back to something that's of comfort, whatever that comfort that could be. That could be going just outside of your city and going up to a hill and just being by yourself. It could be staying in your room. It could be anything that feels familiar and feels comforting and enables you just to come down. And then once we feel that availability, we go back into challenge, and we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between them. And that's when we start to feel flow. Now, obviously, some events in our life will be a collapse. So something that really shakes us, a death of a loved one, a loss of a job, a divorce, for example, an accident, where we feel really shocked and rocked to our core. The key here is that when we go into here, we go back to comfort, and we spend some time in comfort, really connecting to people or things, and taking time for us to really process what's happened, and then asking ourselves, so as we're in this, do I have some availability to do something to move back into challenge? And that can be so small. It could be something like taking a shower. If someone's just been rocked so hard, just even having a shower is a challenge for them. So can I manage that? Do I feel some availability to do that? And then we get back slowly and gradually back into this flux, this flow and flux between challenge, comfort. And if we do ever experience collapse, that we know that we need to come back into comfort and not challenge ourselves anymore, to the best of our ability. Obviously, life's routine, the routines we have in our lives, the responsibilities, is not always possible to do this, but to at least have it in our mind, that we need to, once we've got some space, we're ready to come back to something, some resource, some island of safety, as we say in somatic experiencing, an island of safety that we can come to rest until we feel some availability to come back and challenge ourselves in whichever way. And in that way we start to feel, in that way we start to feel a bit more flow in our life. I hope that's helpful. You take care.